Let's talk about some meaningful mementos you can find in Colombia. Hi all, I'm Ezrado and you're watching my travel channel where I talk all things Colombia. So whether you're thinking of traveling to Colombia for a holiday or living there for a period of time, it's always a good idea to commemorate your trip with a souvenir. Now for a lot of you might hear the word souvenir and think of some form of really kitsch dust collector that just takes up space and probably wasn't even made in the given country it's representing. I know for me, when someone says Australian souvenir, the first thing that comes to mind are those daggy, overpriced t-shirts, fridge magnets, beer holders and the like. If I were to think a little harder though, I'm sure I could come up with some things that are of better taste, most likely things that aren't advertised as souvenirs. Like Australia, and really anywhere in the world, Colombia also has its share of kitschy trinkets, but worry not, as in addition to this, you'll find a huge range of high-quality artisan wares and locally produced products. In this video, I'm going to talk about 5 of these things that you might like, most of which are things I bought myself and can vouch for. To start with, let's go over possibly the most popular souvenir on this list, a mochila bag. Fun fact, the word mochila actually means backpack in Spanish, so when you say mochila bag, you're technically saying backpack bag. A little redundant, but I guess it's helpful if you don't know Spanish. Anyway, despite the name, these aren't really typical backpacks. They're more like pouches or handbags depending on the form factor you choose, and they're commonly used by both women and men alike. What makes these special is that traditionally they're crocheted by women of indigenous groups across the country. This includes the Wayu people in La Guajira, the Ahuaco people in Magdalena, along with several others. Although the design approach can differ somewhat between these groups, the common denominator are these geometric patterns. Sometimes these are inspired by patterns found in nature, and then other times they're purely aesthetic. Whatever the case, you can be assured that a lot of love has gone into each bag. They're typically hand-woven using wool and cotton in a process that can be very arduous and time-consuming. Some of these bags can take 2 to 3 weeks to complete depending on their complexity, so this is far from factory production. The crafting of these bags is much more than a commercial activity though. On the contrary, it's often a very important part of the identity and culture of these groups, passed down as a centuries-old tradition. For the Wayu people, for instance, it's considered a rite of passage into womanhood. During this period, young women are isolated into confinement with their mothers for several years, where they learn several valued skills, including how to weave. They start with a simpler bag, known as a susu, before eventually working their way up to the mochila. With all that being said, you can see how labour intensive and significant these bags are, which is why I absolutely have to recommend them as a meaningful souvenir. You can buy them all over the country, but as said, they can differ in their designs depending on the group who made them. For the most colourful, definitely check out the ones from the Wayu people. If you want something a little more muted with earthier tones though, the ones from the Ahuaco people are often known for this. Moving on to the next souvenir worth checking out though, let's talk a little bit about paintings. Now there's a whole stack of great Colombian art sold across the country. If you go to any large artisan markets or even some historic tourist districts like La Candelaria in Bogota, you'll likely come across a lot of it. What I wanted to recommend in particular though are these paintings from Cartagena. You'll find these within the walled historic district of the city inside and outside of the stores of Las Bovedas. This is a structure that originally served as dungeons in colonial times, but in modern day has been transformed into a line of souvenir shops. Once again, just hearing the word souvenir shops might turn you off, but I can assure you that the stores in Las Bovedas sell some really inspired products, like this toucan pen I bought, which seems to have this sort of geometric Latin American design to its patterns and colours. The paintings I wanted to talk about, however, are probably the most abundant product you'll find in these stores. As you might guess, the paintings are predominantly cityscapes of the historical centre, which is why I have to recommend them. In case you weren't aware, the district of Cartagena is absolutely stunning. It's a World Heritage Site that's essentially a square kilometre of colonial Spanish Caribbean style buildings built between the 15 and 1800s. For me personally, seeing this was easily the biggest wow moment for my entire time in Colombia, as it's pretty surreal when you're there in person. With that in mind, it's no surprise that it's a popular subject for painters. If you want to bring home your memories of the place with you, there are a lot of these paintings to choose from. As said, you'll find them in Las Bovedas stores, both inside and outside, with various sizes and prices to suit your budget. You may find them being sold elsewhere in the district too, like out on the street, but I believe a lot of these are sold by scalpers who just bought them from Las Bovedas and marked them up for profit, so I'd recommend just getting them from the stores instead. Anyway, the next souvenir I wanted to talk about is one of the few things on this list that I actually haven't bought myself, but I think it's worth considering. I see Colombia happens to be a great place to buy emeralds. The country is actually the biggest exporter of the stone, as you'll find some of the highest quality emeralds in the world here, often sold at very reasonable prices. They're mined predominantly in Boyacá, which is the department wedged between Cundinamarca and Santander, Bogota and Bucaramanga's departments, respectively. Don't worry if you're not planning on visiting Boyacá though, as you don't actually need to go here if you want to buy some of their emeralds. In fact, probably the best place to buy them is in Bogotá. Here you'll find the Emerald Trade Center, or the Centro Internacional de Esmeraldas, Joyería y Negocios. It's basically a building in La Candelaria, not far from the Gold Museum, where you'll find a whole bunch of emerald traders set up to buy and sell. You may also get approached by some sellers on the street outside, but try and avoid buying from them as they're likely either selling fakes or are scalpers who will overcharge you, much like the ones I mentioned in Cartagena with the paintings. Admittedly, I don't know much about emeralds and how to tell which ones are of good quality and value, but if you want to learn more about this before buying, there's actually a tour that may be able to help you. Colombian Emerald Tours is a business offering 1 to 2 hour group tours where you'll learn all about the different types of emeralds, along with how they're cut and marketed. It takes place inside the aforementioned trade center, so you'll have the opportunity to buy if you want to, although there's no obligation. If you do though, you'll be refunded the tour price of around 80,000 pesos. The same company also offers a tour which will guide you through an emerald mine, although for that you'll have to go to the town of Chivor, which is in Boyacá, as I mentioned before. I'll put a link down in the description for that company though for anyone who's interested. But yeah, the Emerald Trade Corner in Bogotá, that's the best place to go if you want to buy emeralds. Moving on to souvenir number 4, I've just mentioned jewelry, but let's talk a bit about clothing. Now I'm going to cheat a little with this one, as there isn't just one thing here I wanted to recommend. Instead, I thought it would be helpful to go over a few different clothing items, as there are a handful worth mentioning. Let's start though with the ruana. This Colombian style of poncho, much like the emeralds, is iconic to the department of Boyacá, although it's also made and sold in many other of the Andean regions across the country, and even Venezuela. From all the ones I've seen at least, they're usually made out of wool, so they're really good at keeping you warm. I haven't found them to be as typically colourful like many other ponchos often are, but they are quintessentially Colombian, so you may want to check them out. Besides this, I also wanted to mention a couple of famous Colombian hats. First of all, there's the Aguadeño hat, which is honestly a lot like the Panama hat in their shape, only the Aguadeños are of course made in Colombia rather than Ecuador, which yes, is where Panama hats are actually made, believe it or not. If you want your purchase to be extra meaningful, it's worth picking up one of these Aguadeño hats in the town of Aguada in Santander, which as the name suggests is where they're traditionally made, although you will also find them being sold across the country. If you're feeling a little bold though, another type of hat you might want to look out for is the volteado. This is a wide-brimmed hat that's very iconic to Colombia. You'll probably see it feature on a bunch of other souvenirs like coasters and mugs, since it is one of the most famous symbols of the country. It tends to be most popular in Colombia's Caribbean coastal departments, as this is where it was originally made, actually way back in ancient pre-Columbian times by the Zenu tribes. Just like the Aguadeño though, you should be able to pick this one up anywhere in the country, as again, it's pretty iconic. I tend to think it'd stick out like a sore thumb seeing a non-Latino person wearing this, but hey, if you want something that's very Colombian, this is it right here. Now there are of course a whole bunch of other famous Colombian hats, along with other traditional accessories and clothing for that matter, but those were just 3 that I thought would be worth bringing up. If you find yourself drawn to a particular region of the country though, you may find that they have their own traditional clothing, so that may be something worth looking into if it interests you. To close this video out though, I have one more souvenir to mention, and I don't know if I can even call this a souvenir to be honest, but at the very least it's something you may likely want to take home with you, and that is coffee. I probably don't need to say it, but some of the best coffee in the world is produced in Colombia. Personally, I'm not much of a coffee drinker myself, but if you are, you'll be spoiled for choice when you're out shopping for it in Colombia. They do have the usual Nescafe offerings, but what you really want to look out for is the Juan Valdez coffee. This is like the iconic coffee brand of the country, and for good reason, so I hear, as they're apparently leagues and bounds above most other coffee brands. Again, I'm not a coffee drinker myself, so I haven't tried them enough to have an opinion, but from what my coffee-obsessed mum tells me, this is the good stuff. You can think of Juan Valdez as Colombia's version of Starbucks in that they're both cafe chains but also produce their own coffee products which you can buy in their stores or in supermarkets. Technically Starbucks exists in Colombia too, but only barely. Anyway, I realized that if you live in the US or certain other countries, you may actually have Juan Valdez coffee available in your stores too, or maybe even some of your cafes, but even still, you will likely find a larger range of their product line in Colombia. Most notably, you can actually choose your coffee based on the department of Colombia it was cultivated in, for instance Caldas, Cundinamarca, Huila, Antioquia, Santander, and several others. You don't have to be in the given department to get their coffee either, as they generally distribute all of them nationwide. You'll know which department it's from as they'll often label this on the bag, along with their given strength and flavour profile, so whenever you're at the supermarket you'll have all of these variations of gourmet coffee to choose from in both grounded and bean form no less. Of course, Juan Valdez isn't the only coffee brand in Colombia. There are a few others such as Café Quindio and Café Salento, so no shortage of options. Also, in case you're wondering, yes, it should be totally fine to bring these back on the plane with you, whether they're beans or grounded. I myself have taken them through airports in both the US and Australia without any issues, but it might be worth checking your country's guidelines on that sort of thing along with the quantity limit, just to be sure. But yeah, this is an easy recommendation, especially if you share it with some coffee drinking friends, as they'll love you for it. With that though, I'm going to call it a day on this one. Those were 5 Colombian souvenirs, or just things to bring back with you from Colombia that I'd recommend. Thanks for watching all this way. As always, if you like this, feel free to like, subscribe, bell, and if you have any questions or video suggestions, you can go ahead and leave those in the comments below. But yeah, hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!